Hello students, today we will discuss about Shakespeare's conception of tragedy and natures. Okay, a tragedy is essentially a tale of death or suffering. Shakespearean tragedy or are also powerful tales of death and sufferings. But Shakespearean tragedy is something more than a mere story of death and suffering. In the words of Dowden, tragedy as conceived by Shakespeare is concerned with the ruin or restoration of the soul of the life of the man. In other words, it is subject to struggle of good and evil in the world. Shakespeare's play is not a tragedy merely because it brings before us the moving pictures of the hero and heroine entailed in the coils of death and suffering. Its characteristic motive is the exhibition of the man in an unsuccessful conflict with circumstances. First is Shakespeare's famous tragedies. Shakespeare had left behind a number of tragedies such as Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, and King Lear. Among the Roman tragedies, Coriolanus, Antony and Cleopatra, Timon of Athens are quite remarkable. Let us now examine the fundamental characteristics of the Shakespearean tragedy and the nature of the Shakespearean tragedy. Next, a tragedy of person of higher degree. Shakespeare's tragedy is concerned with the fate persons of high degree, often with kings or princes, and with leaders in the state like Coriolanus, Brutus, and Antony. The dramatist does not concentrate on the lives of ordinary persons, nor does he recall the sufferings of the layman. In modern drama, tragedy is essentially the story of sufferings borne by the common man, but Shakespeare was medieval in his conceptions of tragedy may have powerful effect on the reader's mind. Next, mainly a story of 1-2 persons. Though in Shakespearean tragedy there are a number of persons, yet the tragedy is preeminently the story of the person, hero or the utmost of the two, the hero and the heroine. The concentration is on the hero and the heroine, who generally come to the bitter end at the end of the play. The story leads up and includes the death of the hero. Next is suffering and calamity. Sufferings and calamity that fall to the lot of the hero and not of the ordinary type. The sufferings and calamity are always of exceptional character. The hero has to pass through thrown of excruciating pain and suffering. The suffering is of such a powerful nature that it staggers and shakes the man, and the hero writers on in the coils of insufferable agony. Hamlet in the state of his vacillation is literally on the rack. Othello in the disturbed state of mind finds a house on the rack. Divided within himself, King Lear in afflicted state of his intensity rapes, and Macbeth feels the pang of murdering the king deep down in his heart till he feels that life is meaningless for him, and it is all a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Next, a cause of tragedy. The cause of tragedy in Shakespeare's play in some fatal flaw in the character of the hero or the heroine. In the medieval conception of the tragedy, of fate played an important part in bringing about the tragedy, but Shakespeare made him responsible for his own action, and he believed in the principle. Character or his destiny. In each of his tragedies, the hero is presented in the grip of some fatal flaw in this character, which in spite of external circumstances leads him to his fatal doom. Hamlet meets his tragedy because of his vacillating nature. Macbeth meets his end due to his overweening ambition. Othello is overcredulous and leads to trash. In the character there is fatal flaw which ultimately brings about tragedy. Next, action. In addition to the voluntary actions or the characteristic deeds of the person, the dramatist introduced a number of non-voluntary actions which further accelerated in the speed of tragedy. Next, abnormal condition of mind. Shakespeare represents abnormal condition of mind such as insanity, as in the case of Lear, hallucinations as in the case of Macbeth when he sees the air-drawn dagger, somnambulism as the scene of sleepwalking in Macbeth. The abnormal states of the hero and the heroine deepen the gloom of tragedy. They are not expressive of character. Next, introduction of the experimental element. Shakespeare introduced some from the supernatural agents such as ghosts and witches, which are placed in the closest relation with the main character. Supernatural agents play their one part in the influencing in the life of the hero. The supernatural agents give a confirmation and distinct from to inward movements and inner workings of the hero's mind. The witches in Macbeth and the ghost in Hamlet mold the character of the hero to some extent and prepare his tragedies for him. Next, a chance or accident. In the Shakespeare tragedy, chance or accident play its vital role. To ignore it totally in the tragedy is to distort reality. Several chance incidents happen in Shakespearean tragedies, which instead of averting the tragedy has in its speed. Tragedy is participated by chance happenings. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, it is chance and just an accident that Eager arrived at the prison just too late to save Cordelia's life. It was an accident that Desdemona dropped her handkerchief, which was picked by Emilia and inadvertently passed on to Iago. In Hamlet, it was merely a chance that the pirate ship attacked Hamlet's ship so that the prince was back in Denmark. But Shakespeare, in spite of introducing these chanced elements in his tragedy, does not allow them to be so important as to destroy the sense of causal connection of character, deed and catastrophe. Next, a conflict and struggle. In the Shakespearean tragedy, there is always a conflict and struggle. The conflict takes two forms. Firstly, there is the hero in conflict with the external circumstances. Secondly, the conflict is within the soul of the hero or the heroine. Both the external and the inner conflict have their significance in bringing about tragedy. In Romeo and Juliet, the conflict is external. It is centered in the hatred of the two houses represented by various other characters. In Richard II, again the conflict is external. The king stands one side, Bolingbroke and his party on the other side. In play like Othello, Macbeth, Hamlet and Lear, conflict is both internal and external. Next, a hero. We come now to the hero of tragedy. The heroes of Shakespeare's tragedies are exceptional beings in the whom there is an intensification of life. The hero is a man of exceptional life, but he gone by predisposition in some particular direction. In almost all tragic heroes of Shakespeare, we observe a marked one-sidedness. The hero identifies himself with one interest, object, passion or habit of the mind. The Macbeth is the embodiment of passion and Othello believes what he hears. In Hamlet, there is painful consciousness that duty is being neglected. Each hero and virtuous above the average man, but there is one propensity in which he is so engaged that he loses sight of their consideration. Next, not depressing in effect. A Shakespearean tragedy, in spite of its tragic and never depressed us, though there may be hard reading, suffering for greatness. Macbeth, in the last act of the drama of his life, redeems his character and makes the reader think highly of him. Thus, the most confirmed cynic ceases to be a cynic while he reads these plays. Next, Ave and Pity. The Shakespearean tragedy produced two feelings. The feelings Ave and Pity. The manner in which the hero meets his tragic down produces a feeling of Ave in the hearts of the readers. When we find Macbeth meeting his end in an encounter with Macduff, we are all stricken at his fall. Next time, Poetic Justice. Though there may not be strict poetic justice in the Shakespearean tragedy, yet our moral sense is never given shock. The villains are generally punished for their evil deed. Macbeth, who had murdered Duncan and had been responsible for many other murders, meets his tragic end in the Lady Macbeth also suffers because had crushed her own nature. Villain is punished in the Shakespearean tragedy. It is very difficult for a villain like Iago and Edmund to escape punishment. Human life is both a tragedy and comedy, tears and smiles, sighs and shouts of the joy. Marriage and funeral go side by side. Tragedy and comedy are two twin sisters, daughters of the same mother life. Human life, says Goethe, is a tale told in tears with a smile. Shakespeare wrote comedies as a relief from the strain of tragedy. Writing Shakespeare wrote tragedies, but when he felt mentally exhausted, he sought for a mental relief and rest. Then he went to the fountain of comedy to drink the nectar of peace and relief. Forgetting the heaviness of tragic gloom, Shakespeare wrote his comedies when he was in his most lively and cheerful mood. Okay. Thank you for watching.